The Detroit Lions do not execute a trade at the deadline. I'm John Macaroon, Detroit Lions on SI. Let's talk about it. I think a lot of fans clearly are frustrated that the Lions, after a disappointing loss to the Vikings, they identified a clear need. And you can never have enough help, depth along the trenches. And for the Detroit Lions, a clear need became established. Christian Mahogany goes down with injury, a broken bone, and he's likely going to be out at least until the end of December. May have a chance to return for the postseason, but you recognize how the Lions do things that he may need a couple weeks to acclimate. And for the Detroit Lions, it opens up a clear hole at left guard. Now, Dan Campbell said that they may reshuffle. You may end up moving Graham Glasgow to left guard and utilizing Tristan Colon or Kingsley Egwakun or a player from the practice squad to end up playing. The Lions did end up adding a former Boston College offensive lineman to the practice squad. He's going to be developed over the course of the next several weeks. What his role is going to look like will be determined over the next several weeks. But for the Detroit Lions, there was an indication that, okay, there was a need. And, you look across the landscape of the league, teams like the Colts make a blockbuster move. They're trying, after experiencing some great success this year, they're trying to significantly upgrade their team, giving up multiple first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. The cornerback position could have been upgraded, could have had depth for the Detroit Lions, but maybe you didn't need a player of the caliber of Sauce Gardner, but maybe for more depth. Many people were wondering about the Seahawks and Tariq Woolen because of his man-to-man fit in the Lions scheme. But to make no moves really indicates that the Lions trust their roster. That's the onus. That's the reason. The thinking is that the Lions did their work diligently to evaluate a lot of these players that were brought in free agency and through the draft. But unfortunately, you look at it and you say you can never really have too much depth. A key factor that I think is causing a lot of concern and worry, as it should, is you're going to get back Marcus Davenport, Ahmed Hassanin, Josh Pascal, but each are coming off of an injury. And the idea would be, if you just, from a fan perspective, if you look at it and you say, if there's a position that the Lions can ill afford to have injuries, or if a player is not playing as well or something happens, where could the Lions have solidified their roster? It would have been in the trenches. There were players available, but the asking price is quite high. Many people feel like the Lions are quite close, being that they're a 5-3 team. They're a football team that has talent all over. The front office has invested nearly $1 billion to bring back and add talent to this football team. Many people felt like, where's the motivation to push all in, to make a further push to be able to win a Super Bowl? It just didn't happen. And the Lions are sticking to their principles, which are to find the right player, the right fit, the right individual at the right price. And if a lot of the fits aren't there, the Lions are not making those moves. They really rely upon the draft and develop are the key ways this football team handles talent acquisition. And so some of the fans disagree, myself included a little bit. I feel like there were opportunities, at least, of course, the Saints trade an offensive lineman. They don't happen too often, but for, I believe, a 2027 late round pick, I think a 2027 sixth, I believe, Penning goes out to the Chargers, who had a clear need. So many people felt that, is a player like that comparable to Tristan Colon or Coyote Awosika? Doesn't hurt to have competition. Doesn't hurt to see. But the Lions felt they went younger, and they did bring on a player, but he's been out of football for the last month or so. So this is undrafted free agent. So the whole league didn't believe in this Boston College offensive lineman up until this point. So something was seen. So clearly the Detroit Lions have found a college that they like offensive linemen from. They like the training. They like what they see. So it's an interesting situation now. Many people believe that the Lions Super Bowl hopes took a dip backwards after the deadline. Look, it's still a good football team. Many people expect this football team to be in Super Bowl contention, but it's just tougher. You realize that you're going to go up against stout defensive lines. You're going to go up against teams like the Eagles and the Rams, and you're going to get a test against the Eagles pretty soon here in 11 days on Sunday Night Football. So for most fans, they just want as much insurance as possible for a team that's dealing with injuries, that's close, that also has a quarterback making $50 million, that needs as much support as possible. Because the offense is a timing-based offense that can get quickly out of rhythm just as fast as they are in rhythm. And so why not add to this offensive line. There was not a single offensive lineman that you could target, maybe overspend a little bit. You were willing to give up multiple thirds for a wide receiver, a position you're not even using. So there is aggression in general manager Brad Holmes. And then the fan base, of course, has to see Howie Roseman felt like was a little bit trolling. There has to be. I mean, he's out there sitting in front of the cameras, right away addressing the media, talking about how he's super aggressive and he's going to leave no stone unturned, that any opportunity to be aggressive will be taken advantage of, and he doesn't want to have no regrets. And you're just like, man, that's some great GM rhetoric that definitely is going to fire up a fan base. Made a lot of Detroit Lions fans jealous hearing how Howie Roseman does things. And you have to look at and respect Howie Roseman. He's earned it. He's earned the respect. He's earned everybody looking at what he does. Yeah, he's made mistakes, some big mistakes, but they're covered up because he's won Super Bowls. And he made an aggressive move that was typically viewed as non-ideal by adding Saquon Barkley to a roster, then giving him a massive contract. That's something that hasn't been considered ideal in the recent past. But guess what? That was a shot in the arm to the organization and propelled them to win a Super Bowl. So the Detroit Lions are in a similar boat, but they just haven't been over the hump. They are one of the rare teams that has yet to ever appear in a Super Bowl. So it's a challenging time. It's a time where fans are obviously here in Detroit also wounded by the fact that the baseball team acted the exact same way, very avoidant of high impactful, high priced talent at the deadline, and having a deadline that really didn't address a big need. One of the needs for the Detroit Tigers was a clear hitter. Didn't do it. They went for more role players that were older, more projects per se. The Lions weren't able to execute. And for Brad Holmes, it's just going to really put a lot of pressure on this football team for the remaining 9 games and in the playoffs. The Lions are a Super Bowl or bust caliber organization. That's the way they should be viewed. They've put themselves in that position. Many people believe the window is open for a long period of time, but just as fast as the window opened, it can close. Injuries. The fan base understands the challenge that any team, let alone the Detroit Lions, are going to face to be able to win a Super Bowl. It's just super tough. And any added insurance would have made people feel a little bit better. One move, one simple trade to compete, to add depth, a player that you targeted across the whole league. There's not a single player that the Lions felt across the whole league you could target and make a move for. And then you look across the landscape and other teams have been making moves. And even teams that aren't in contention, like the Cowboys, are giving away capital. So it's an interesting debate to have. Brad Holmes has clearly identified his plan. The Lions are not veering away from their principles. They really prefer to draft and to sit and evaluate talent from top to bottom. They want to know their football character. They want to invest in players that they have a firm comfortableness. Many people would say it really wasn't all that difficult to go out and target Za'Darius Smith, but Brad Holmes did his due diligence and he put in a lot of work. He said it was the toughest evaluation he had to make and to execute. To make a trade for an over 30-year-old defensive end, it's interesting to determine what was so difficult about it. It was a clear need and maybe something that, was an area that the Browns were interested in accomplishing, getting a draft pick to let go of a player. So for the Detroit Lions, it's a thorough process, but is it the best one? Is it the best one? Right now, the fan base is a little unsettled and the organization has planted their flag. Draft and develop, trust their own guys. Now we have 9 games to determine how that's going to shake out. The Detroit Lions have taken a huge risk. Let's find out if it's going to pay off. The Lions did not execute a single draft trade. It's not for lack of trying, but for a lack of executing.